Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Season 3, Episode 7, Ecuador Insider Podcast. Thanks so much for being here. Jesse Bayer, Ryan Pemberton, Carl Marsan, the podcast face of Abundant Living Ecuador. We are a real estate and development company located in Southern Ecuador in the Loja, Vilcabamba region. Thanks again for tuning in. If you do enjoy this content, please give us a like, a share, a comment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, all that good stuff. I guess we probably are putting out at this point, 3 to 5 videos a week. And a good, some of those are content, some of those are properties. But there's a lot of, if you're researching Ecuador, this is definitely a good channel to be subscribed to. We do our best to be very accurate and give you, textural on the ground feel of life and all things real estate related here in Ecuador. So again, welcome back. Thanks for joining. Today's show is going to be a conversation on investing, working in Ecuador, investment opportunities in Ecuador, investing in Ecuador, the business climate, a bit as well, and really sort of all things related to making money in Ecuador. So this is, we all have sort of varied experiences and different backgrounds. Obviously, we run a business today here in Ecuador. And so, we all can share our experiences a bit for probably between the three of us, 25 years or something of doing business in Ecuador. So that's what we're here to chat about today. And I think really to have this conversation, we have to have some context. So for me, right, I come from Northeast US. I was doing, I was investing in real estate in Brooklyn and New York for a number of years. That was the mindset and the mentality that I came to Ecuador with which is very much sharks in the water, go get it, tons of competition, looking for every little advantage in an environment where there's an enormous amount of competition, enormous amount of capital, enormous amount of talent, people from all over the world competing for every little opportunity. The processes are pretty standard, in the US and much of the Western world, I would imagine. So when you need a permission or you need, you need a permit or you need, whatever process you're doing, usually those processes are pretty standard. Generally speaking, the rule, right? And whatever that rule is, you have to research it and then decide whether you want to move forward or not based on those parameters. And so, I get to Ecuador in 2013 with that mindset, not speaking Spanish, not understanding the culture, and basically got walloped, thinking that I knew everything, and trying to do business the way I was used to doing business back home. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge that doing business in Latin America is different. And if someone were to ask me, who wasn't working with me, right? Just a friend, hey, who maybe they were going to some other country or they're going to some other part of the country where I couldn't help them. And they were going to say to me, what are the keys to, you've done this, you've created a successful career there. You're an investor, you do all these projects, so on and so forth. What would be the keys to success? I would say, take 2 years and don't do anything. Learn the language, learn the culture. Figure all that stuff out, because that is literally, without it, you can't be successful. Like until you understand the way the culture is, the way business, all those things work here, you really are kind of shut out, the way I was for the first couple of years that I was here while I learned all that stuff. Now, for us as a company, we've solved that now, right? I'm 9 years in. Carl's even more than that. Ryan's been running a business here now for several years, so we have that learning curve now is squashed down to zero, for our clients, for the people that we're working with. We've figured out the model. We're successful here. We understand how all that works. So we can really help you here doing that. But just talking in general, business in Latin America, business in Ecuador, investing in Ecuador, understanding the culture, adjusting to the business climate is a priori, like it's a prerequisite, for success here, in my opinion. And that's because those standard processes are not the same. 6 months doesn't mean 6 months. The list of prerequisites is fungible. It's malleable. It's not a standard thing. Everything here is done through relationships. Everything. So before you have those relationships and before you understand the culture and how things are done and the way you go about things and all that sort of stuff, the answer is no on everything. Once you have those things and once you have those relationships and understand how to function and how to operate, it's very easy to do business here. Ultimately, I prefer doing business here to New York by a lot. And that kind of gets into a little bit of sort of the positive stuff about it that really offsets some of that adjustment period, which is that there isn't that competition, right? So this is not an entrepreneurially minded culture. It's not that there aren't entrepreneurs. It's not that there aren't business people doing all kinds of things, all kinds of stuff going on, people exploiting opportunities. All of that goes on, but at a much, much, much lesser level, at a much lower degree, I should say. There isn't capital from all over the world competing for opportunities here. There isn't a million people looking to exploit every opportunity from, even from here. People don't relate to entrepreneurship the same way they do in the US. So because of that, and because the country's so abundant, right? There's no winter. There's low population. There's tons of land. The land is fertile and beautiful and amazing, right? Because of all these sort of other factors, the opportunities are so much larger than what I was used to. Coming from the New York market, right? And I did very well in New York. Like it's not a matter of, I didn't do well there and I'm doing well here, so I like it better here. No, like I did well in New York. The opportunities here are just multiplied. The returns on investment, many times greater. The amount of opportunities, many times greater. And it's just sort of unexploited opportunities, right? And so we're going to get into some of the details and some of the specifics on that. But I think it is important to sort of set that up a little bit. The other sort of setup factors that I think are worth noting here at the beginning: labor is very, very inexpensive. Your inputs in general are very inexpensive, right? So your cost of energy or water, or your labor costs, insurance, for example, essentially nobody has it, right? It's not even necessarily necessary, but even if you want to have different types of insurances, they're very inexpensive. Taxes here, not business taxes, those are pretty standard, but other taxes here, real estate taxes and others, are so low, it's laughable, right? Coming from somewhere else, it's hard to even understand how they could be that low. So your costs here are a fraction of what they are elsewhere, and the exploitable opportunities are many times greater. So it's really this beautiful mix, of much more opportunity and much lower cost to exploit those opportunities, with much greater returns available. And all you have to do is figure out the culture, right? That's the key. And again, if you're working with us, we've done that. So that's something, that we can help with. All right, I'm going to jump into all kinds of things, but let's bring you guys in here. Do you guys have some sort of intro stuff that you want to touch on, or do you want to jump into anything else before I keep rolling?
No, that was a great intro. Thank you for that, Jesse. Yeah, I don't know exactly where to go from there. I think it's exciting. I would imagine that most people listening right now who are considering moving to Ecuador are excited to hear everything you said. I think it could possibly be intimidating to consider, what would I do in Ecuador if I moved there? Carl, why don't you touch a little bit on that? Because you came here and you decided to stay. You were just touring around as a tourist, and then you're like, Ecuador, I love this place. I'm going to stay. How did that feel for you to kind of start your own business here initially?
Yeah, well, very good intro, Jesse, indeed. I think this podcast can apply to different types of people. Some people might come here with a lot of capital. They want to invest money. And that's sort of what, Jesse, you're more of an expert at. I came here with no capital. I didn't have money to invest in a business, but I had skills that I started exploiting. And so I sort of created my own business through that. So I could say, so basically what I did, I had experience in like raw food, raw vegan cooking. So I decided to start making products. I was making different varieties of chocolate balls, chocolate bars, energy bars. I even made sauerkraut. I made different food products like that. And believe it or not, like I was able to live on that income for many years here, very comfortably, with my family. And to add to that, I didn't need to speak Spanish to be able to run that business at all, because my business was geared towards expats. It was geared towards foreigners that live here. And so actually there are opportunities for business that don't require learning or knowing Spanish at all if your marketing is geared towards expats and English speaking people. So I did that, and then I did various other things afterwards. But basically what I'd like people to understand is that, like Jesse said, there are lots of opportunities here. It requires creativity. It requires like finding something that's not available here, finding a need that you can resolve, adding value that's not already being done in the area. And like you said, there's not that much competition. So I do think that with a little bit of creativity, there are definitely good opportunities for people who just want to create a small business for themselves, maybe just a job for themselves or their families, and don't necessarily have the capital to invest big. And I can go into examples of things that I think might be good ideas here, but maybe we could touch on that later.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, though. There's lots of niches or niches, sort of catering to the needs of foreigners in Ecuador that are not well served. And so, you kind of tapped into that early on and created a living for yourself. And lots of people in Vilcabamba have done that, right? So there's one of the cool things about Vilcabamba, really, it's got to be one of the cottage industry capitals of the world, right? There's just so many people producing at a very small scale goods and services that people want, that aren't, that aren't commercially manufactured.
And particularly for those who like natural health and living, that people are making products that are arguably better than what you can find in the States. For example, Jesse, your wife is making kombucha that is better than GT's kombucha, or some of the other major brands in the U.S. that I always drank. And I come here and initially couldn't find any good kombucha. Now your wife has stepped up and provides some of the best kombucha. And there's really a market for those types of things. Carl was selling chocolate bars and peanut butter balls, and, all these different things, chocolate peanut butter balls. If you make them still yet today, Carl, they are hands down the best chocolate peanut butter balls you will ever taste in your life. I guarantee it. In fact, Carl, if you don't mind, maybe we just, anybody who's listened this far and cares to in the comments, just put hashtag Chocolate Carl. And his name, Chocolate Carl, came about because there was another Carl, and he sold coconuts and coconut oil and different stuff. So it was like Coconut Carl or Chocolate Carl, So yeah, throw it right now. Go down in the comments and put hashtag Chocolate Carl. That would be fantastic. But with thousands of expats living in Vilcabamba, there is a need for basic goods and services. So, and I think we've touched on this before, but there are people who, sharpen knives and, build cabinets and islands, different things you can put in your house, dressers, that kind of a thing. But not a lot of them. There's still room for competition in all of these different areas, trades and crafts. So I don't think any one area is oversaturated. We don't have a Walmart here, so people in Loja, people in Vilcabamba, they do things that that are needed. You can't just go buy at Walmart. So Ecuador produces a lot of their own goods, and it's fun in that way that we have a really cool community that stepped up and provided some of those goods and services we're used to from the States?
Yeah. Little side note. For some people, they hear about, starting a business, creating products, marketing them, selling them, in the Western world, that's a big endeavor. Like that means, getting permits, getting, inspectors, getting your branding, getting all of that stuff. There's a big upfront cost. Whereas here, literally, you can just start making it out of your own kitchen and selling your products on the street. And none of this is like necessarily required. Now, if you want to scale up and start delivering all around the country and getting into bigger stores, for sure, you're going to have to go through some of that. But a lot of the, cottage industry in Vilcabamba, most people are making stuff in their own houses and selling them in the, organic market or in some of the stores around town. And, the store owners are very generous and they're very kind. They're letting people sell, their homemade products at their stores, getting a little commission. So that's still happening. That's still going to be happening. I don't see Ecuadorian government starting to, regulate all of that anytime soon, especially in the countryside where we are. So, I think that's a big plus as well.
It's great. Good.
I just wanted to say, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, and it's just one of the things that's so cool about Vilcabamba, right? Because that sort of cottage industry stuff is so alive and well, and it's so helpful for the economy for everybody, right? The store owners, the little shop owners make money selling the products. The person producing the product supports their family. The people in the community have these products available that otherwise they'd have to be bringing in from the States or going to look for in Cuenca or figuring out ways to import or to get in some other way. And it's just an example of one of the many things that's just so cool about the community in Vilcabamba, where, people really do kind of, maybe not intentionally, but they work together and things really do work pretty well. From a standpoint of sort of like what I would describe kind of as how life should be lived, yeah.
Right. No, I mean, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to change subjects. If you got something there, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Okay. One other thing that I didn't mention at the beginning that's important as well, jumping back into investment stuff is, Ecuador has a stable currency now. All three of us may be a little bit concerned about the dollar, but Ecuador has, a backup currency ready to go. But Ecuador is dollarized, right? So traditionally, this is a stable currency, certainly. And Ecuador has a stable political climate as well. And has now since 2008, at least. So we have a stable political climate. We have a stable currency. We also have a very business-friendly government right now, administration. So, Carl, you were mentioning, like my wife, right, that kombucha business that you mentioned, it's a very much, cottage industry-sized kombucha business at this point. And she can't keep the stores filled, with her kombucha. Like the demand is much more than she can handle out of her kitchen. And I'm encouraging her to scale here because I think she could take over the whole country pretty easily. But she has three kids. So, but Carl, you mentioned permissions, right? They've made that easier now. Even if you want to go through the legal process to get all the permissions, the new administration has simplified that process a great deal. So she went through the registración sanitario or whatever it is to get the permissions on the kombucha and to have the proper label. And it was a breeze. And so, one of the drawbacks to doing business in Ecuador certainly is the size of the bureaucracy, but it's much less. I wouldn't describe it as worse even than the U.S. at all. The U.S. bureaucracy at this point is absurd, right? But I wouldn't describe it as worse than the U.S. Definitely different. But we do have an administration currently that's making all those entrepreneurial activities easier. And Ecuador is also a country that's very much geared politically towards the little guy. So it's not a country that likes to put up really large barriers to entry like they do in the US, where, you have all these industries in the US that unless you've got, $1 million to start up, you can't get through the regulatory hurdles to even get a license, right? Whereas Ecuador doesn't do that. Ecuador makes little in entrepreneurial activities easy to, there are no barriers to entry to speak of. So that's, that's interesting too, in the context of what you're talking about. And then, let's see, was there one other thing on that? No, I think that is it. Yeah. Okay. Anything on that stuff or anything else before I jump into some other topics?
Jump on in, Jesse.
Okay. So the just talking, again, back to sort of investment type stuff that I'm familiar with. So again, I got here in 2013. We launched Abundant Living Ecuador shortly thereafter. It was a bad time to do that. In addition to me not knowing what I was doing and being the know-it-all American New Yorker. So we went through that process, went through the learning curve, learned the language, made all the contacts, etc. And then as the years went by, started to get into other activities, right? So we started doing development projects where we buy rural pieces of land, bring in the infrastructure, make them beautiful, design beautiful spaces for people to live, and sell lots. In some cases, we build them out with construction. That's a business here now that we've done for, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 years now. And again, right in line with everything else I said, much higher returns than I was used to in the States doing similar activities. So we don't even look at a project unless it has a 200% plus ROI. In many cases, that's not even super interested, right? We're more interested in 300-400% ROI type opportunities. Is it too much to say those grow on trees? Maybe, but they're not uncommon. They're not uncommon here, developing. So that's a really interesting opportunity. Agriculture, which took me, really years to figure out. It's essentially an arbitrage play here. Agriculture, land here is cheap, not in Vilcabamba, where people really want to live, relatively. But it's still cheaper probably than where you're coming from by a lot. But agricultural land, rural land, large tracts of rural land, still very, very, very inexpensive in Ecuador. It's some of the best, place to do agriculture in the world. And then when you factor in your climate, your labor costs, your water costs, your energy costs, so on and so forth, you're doing the same activities they might be doing in California or Colorado or Kansas or wherever, without the climate issues of winter and all the seasonal changes, and at a maybe at a 10%, 5% input cost here versus there. So it's essentially an arbitrage play, and it's in ideal growing conditions. So you can really make a fortune here on agriculture. There's all kinds of high margin products, crops, I should say. If you want to get into processing them and making products, you can do all that stuff too. If you want to export, you can do all that stuff. But even just basic, simple agriculture of just, producing at scale crops for the local market, there's really actually big money in that, which is surprising. It took me years to understand that, but it's very much the case. And again, it comes down to unexploited opportunities. There's still whole sections of this country that nobody's really doing anything. The agricultural scale is half a hectare. A hectare would be a large farm. Many people are just sort of farming their backyard type of thing, their little patch, right? So you have these areas where they're just totally unexploited. You can pick land up there for very inexpensive. You can do beautiful projects. All the stuff we do is organic. You're giving people jobs. There's all kinds of benefits to the local economy as well. And the financial returns are excellent. The sort of main business that a lot of, real estate investors look at is the rental business, right? Rental properties. That also took me a little while to figure out here because the ratios are different. This was kind of my business in New York for a while. And, in New York, I remember at that time anyway, market may have changed since then, but at that time, if you could find a building that was somewhere in the neighborhood, usually it was a little higher, but if you could find something somewhere in the neighborhood of like 10 times rent roll, you were doing great. Basically you're adding up the rent over the course of a year. and you're multiplying that by the multiple, and that comes out, if the price of the property came out to 10 times that, you're very happy. At that time, I've been out of the game for a while, so if those ratios have changed, let us know in the comments. But here, some of those numbers I discovered early on were a little bit lower than what I was used to. I think they've actually adjusted up now, and we're getting closer to those kinds of ratios here anyway. But what I was failing to factor in at the beginning was just how cheap your carrying costs are. So, you might find something 10, 12 times rent roll or something in New York, but your annual property taxes, your insurance, your water, your heating costs, etc., were such a large factor in changing, the overall net, the overall return. Here, those costs are almost zero. Like that's an exaggeration, but it's not a huge exaggeration. Your annual property tax here on $1 million property, and that's assessed value, meaning it's probably worth $3 million. But your annual property tax on $1 million assessed value property is $1,000 a year, right? So on a $500,000, it's $500 annually. That's your property taxes. So your property taxes here are almost non-existent. Oh boy. Sorry, we got a guy showing up, and my dogs are not happy about it. 1 second. Why don't you guys take over for half a second here?
Yeah, man, I was really enjoying that too. Jesse was on a roll there. Oh man. You good, Jesse? Yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm
Carl,
good.
what do you think?
I may have
Jesse's back.
I may have some stuff going on around me now, which is okay. But
I know. I Jesse's on the coast, obviously, but we've all stayed on the coast there in this little community, and each one of these condo owners they're renting this out on Airbnb, right? They're making their rental income this way, and they always hire these workers to come on certain days at a certain hour to clean. This is that time for you, huh?
Exactly. And, interestingly enough, the ratios, I was running numbers on this place. I've kind of become friends with the owner, who's a French Canadian, like Carl. He's doing pretty well. He's getting close to $1,800 a month here via Airbnb on this condo unit. And I think the ratio on that, I don't know exactly what this would be worth in the open market, but probably 250, 300,000, something like that. So, reasonably decent ratio there for sure. I don't remember exactly where I was, but your carrying costs here are very low. So the rental income business is actually a pretty decent one. If you want to reach out to us, we can give you some tips on that, but there are ways to do it that you can get to those, New York type ratios at least, and then really be better than them once you factor in the carrying costs.
Yeah. And we should talk a little bit about Vilcabamba in that way, because we do have people reaching out all the time asking if we think that there would be a market to buy a property and have it on Airbnb. Like, will we, do we suggest something like that? And I say absolutely. There are a growing, and I mean growing, number of expats moving to the area, and there's really a shortage on houses. So right now it's difficult to find a long-term rental. And so what people are finding is that they're going to Airbnb and looking for a place that's available in Vilcabamba. And while there are some, there aren't enough. Now, if it's a nicer one, of course, yours is going to rent over kind of a classic Ecuadorian built house, because a lot of times they're built, just not to Western standards. So if you were to come down, buy a lot and throw up a handful of houses on this lot and rent them out and kind of have like a little common space, that would do really well here right now. And projections are into the future, as well as this area continues to grow, become more well known in the international community. And so we're very excited about the prospect of having more people come down and do projects like that. We have ideas of our own. We certainly would love to have a conversation with you if you're interested in something like that. I'd say Carl and I are both more on the ground, dealing with a lot of the clients and a lot of the emails and phone calls coming in. But this is, handful of times a week, we're talking to people who are looking for investment opportunities, which kind of led us to want to make this video for people because we want to indicate that, the desire is there for people to want to move down here and invest in this area. And like Jesse was saying, we hope he returns soon, is that the opportunities are immense in many areas, including rental properties. Paul, did you have some things on your mind?
No, just second what you're saying. The rental market is very scarce. We have a lot of people reaching out about finding rentals, and there's just not much available. So as Vilcabamba continues to grow, more people come to the area. There's definitely going to be a huge need for rentals. So that's a big opportunity.
Nice. So yeah, what do you want to talk about now, Carl? We got a little intermission here. So Carl and I are here in Vilcabamba, and as you can see, the weather is fantastic here. It was a little sunny, I think, for both Carl and I initially, but we've had this passing cloud the last 15 minutes, and it's been maybe 5 minutes, 8, 10, whatever. It's been nice, but yeah, we've definitely, let's talk about weather because that's something that never gets old. One of the main reasons why people are moving here and why this area is attractive to investors is the year-round climate of mid-70s to low 80s. So right now I'm feeling it's about 78 degrees, and I'd say it's perfect. I don't know what Jesse has a different opinion. It's probably 85 and 85% humidity where he's at on the coast. That's not really my thing, except for just a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks a year for vacation, be in the water all the time. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts, Carl? It's about perfect, right?
Weather's really nice right now. It's beautiful. There's a little breeze. I think the wind might be coming a little bit. The summer there's a little bit more wind in the air.
Right.
We had a pretty hard rainy season this year. It's rained more than all the years that I've been here, which is nice. I mean, everything's green, everything's lush, everything's vibrant. The rivers have grown. There's been water, a lot of water, but it's nice. But it's really nice to have two seasons. You got a season where it rains a lot, everything's green, your crops are growing, and then you got half of the year where it's pretty dry and it's beautiful and sunny. And you can go to the river, go swim, enjoy nature, and the mountains are a little drier, but still, it's nice to have seasons for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So good. So weather's perfect, and that's the reason why people are moving down here amongst the community, which you guys haven't checked out our previous podcast. I think we did this last week on the community of Vilcabamba. Check that out. We should probably link it down in the description below, and or just check out our podcast playlist. We try to keep you guys informed on all things Ecuador, like we've said, and also take the opportunity right now to tell us in the comment section what type of videos you want to see from us. What are some of the topics we've missed? And if we can't do a podcast about it, we're certainly able to do content videos. And we're looking to kind of scale that up a little bit and bring more of this content to you guys because, Carl and I, Jesse, we've been here for some time and we have forgotten almost what it's like to initially think about moving here. And, we didn't have any of this information. And I was blessed to have my wife's family who had already been here. So I kind of had an easier transition. But Carl, for you, man, you came in as a tourist and then you just plopped down. You and Jesse both had to find your way. Like Jesse was saying, with doing business here, nothing was really simple for you guys. You just had to figure it out. Jesse doing real estate, it's a little bit more complex than selling your product in town, but both of those things are easy enough to do now. And we are certainly able to help you guys. If you wanted to reach out to us directly to ask us questions about whether or not we think what you would want to provide for the community to move down here, like a trade or a service, would be doable, reach out to us at info@abecuador.com and run it by us and tell us what you're doing. And if you think it's something that you could make a living on, and we'll give you the honest truth. And that's going to help you probably make the decision on whether to move here or not, if you think you can make a living. So there's that. Jesse's back. Good to see you, man.
Back and better than ever. Yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention, just in the context of considering either where to put capital if you're an investor, or just where to sort of, where to stake your, where to lever yourself to, right? If you want to live there or live and do business or anything like that, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on in the world right now, right? There's the potential of a global sort of war. There's massive inflation that we're seeing play out now all over the world. There's issues with the supply chain. And those are things that are, taking place now, right? What comes next, we don't know. Could be great. Maybe this stuff all just goes away and we go back to normal, or maybe it gets worse, or I don't know. We're not going to make predictions on that. But in that sort of scenario where prices are going up, goods and services are harder to get, there's more uncertainty, there's geopolitical events, so on and so forth. We could be looking at, I think we already are in many ways, but it's sort of a reverse of roles, right? Where what used to be the most investable countries, what used to be the places people went for stability and for a business climate that was comfortable to operate in, and so on and so forth, become the places people are not wanting to necessarily do business in anymore. And places like Ecuador become the sought after places, right, for living and doing business. Why? The story we've talked about a million times, right? You have this year-round climate. We're right near the equator. The variation in climate here is very little year-round. You had of any kind of climate you're looking for. You have some of the best air, soil, water in the world. You have a friendly, safe culture. You have a government that is on the scale of governments, less crazy than most, so on and so forth. And so you have a country where it's sort of, our company is Abundant Living Ecuador, and we picked that name for a reason, but you have a country that kind of lends itself to abundance, right? And that also alters the attitudes of the people, right? If you don't have winter, if you don't have scarcity per se, with food and those sorts of things, your attitude towards life changes. It's more relaxed. It's more comfortable. People have a different mindset. Anything goes kind of mentality here is very much at play. People are not usually super high stress. The downside of that is, the guy might not show up on Tuesday like he said he would. So there'll be some of that. But the upside to that is, you're not on your deathbed with stress, right? So there's really it's really an interesting time here as things shift the way they are in the world. It's still cheap. Ecuador is still cheap. Certain markets are getting more expensive, but it's still very inexpensive here comparatively. The cost of living here is still very, 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 very low. It's still very easy to immigrate to. There's no anti-foreigner laws or sentiment of any kind, whether that's business or to live. It's a unique opportunity. It's something that I'm, as I look at the world now, right? I got here in 2013 and I look at things now, and I'm very, very grateful that I made this decision then to come down, set my life up here, set up my financial, life up here. Not that I couldn't have maybe done better if I had stayed in New York financially for some amount of that time. I don't know, but because certainly there was a steep learning curve for me here at the beginning. But at this point, to be, established in a place like this where I don't have to worry about all those things that I just mentioned. And for the opportunity for other people who are not here yet to still come in, if you're looking for passive investment type stuff or more hands-off investment type stuff, we take on investment capital for projects that we're doing. pretty consistently. So there's that opportunity as well. But if you're looking just to live and, maybe have a little business or set up just sort of that low key lifestyle, that opportunity is there. If you're looking to really hit it hard on, large scale investments and projects, that opportunity is there. I don't know how long that window will be open, hopefully forever, but it's certainly open now. And it's unique. It's unique in that way because of all the things I just mentioned.
Agreed.
All right. Anything else before I hit the beach?
Is that what you're gonna do, huh?
Well, no, actually, I think you and I have a call after this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought we were working today. Yeah, good. I mean, personally, I think that this was a nice conversation to have. I was asking for everybody watching if they wanted us to do a specific type of content video, to leave it in the description, in the comments rather, because it's important that we try to get this information out as well as we can. But we should do some more videos where we, concisely put down all of the investment opportunities, what's really going on, give some examples of what we have listed and what you could do with it, kind of showcase what we're talking about. So I think this is a good kind of prelude to more videos like this coming out, because people are interested in this and we want to talk more about it. So yeah, Carl, what do you think? We're good?
I agree. We can wrap it up.
Well, hey, one other thing before we go on sort of a separate subject. We're also in the process of scaling up a bit at the real estate company at Abundant Living. If you're someone with a skill set, for example, sales, if you're really, a professional, a great salesperson, if you have exceptional marketing skills or any other skills that you think might be interesting to us, even administrative is we're looking for a number of people right now potentially to work with us. So if you're somebody who thinks that we might be a good fit, enjoys real estate, enjoys helping people, enjoys maybe creating content or working on marketing or working on systems or sales or various things like that, feel free to reach out. We'd love to have a quick chat with you and see if it's a good fit. Again, we think it's really a nice place to live and work. I can't think of a place I'd rather live in the world than Vilcabamba, Ecuador. The community just gets better and better as we go here. And we are looking to scale up our business a little bit. So just food for thought as well.
Yeah, and English is the language that we are, asking for. Now, you don't need to know Spanish. So if you're an English speaker, but you don't know Spanish, we're talking to you. Good.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Again, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Definitely recommend hitting the bell if you haven't already. That notifies you of any new content that we put out. Other than that, we'd appreciate a like, a share, any of that good stuff. And we'll be back pretty soon. Have a great day.
Hashtag chocolate Carl. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.